Hey everyone, thank you so much for coming here tonight. We have a full house. This is fantastic. My name is Jan Rosner. I'm the co-founder and CEO of One Earth Rising. We are a video game software developer, so we develop tools for game developers to actually get into the Web3 world, the metaverses, in AI, etc., all the buzzwords. So that is my role, but also tonight I'm your moderator here, and we are having an esteemed panel here on our stage. And this is part of our series that we do on a regular basis called the Game Changers Collective, getting people of different walks of life, mainly in the tech business, together and get the insights, and also breaking topics down to make them more accessible to our listeners and attendees, and to really make good tech topics better understandable. Quick question, how is my sound sounding? I hear something here in the back, but I think it's okay. Everybody okay in the back? Good. And here, One Earth Rising is also accompanied by its very own COO, Bronson Lingenfelter, here in the back, managing the camera setup. Are we running, by the way? Awesome. Cool. Great. So today we're going to talk about advertising in the age of AI, the amplifying messages or muffling authenticity. So everything is AI at the moment when it comes to investments, when it comes to tech talks, and everybody in between. So we wanted to break this down specifically here with this esteemed panel talking about advertising in particular. And so we thank you very much for coming here tonight. Quick note about the sequence. We're going to talk amongst ourselves here for the next 45 minutes. Then we will open up to the audience. So please think about some questions that you have. Any question is welcome. And then afterwards we do a little networking. Also tonight is going to be Sunset Social, which is a networking, fun get together with DJ music, etc. So I encourage you to stay afterwards and check out the place and have good fun, make new friends. That leads me to our partners that are so inclined to support us in this series, one of which I wanted to mention first because I'm biased. I'm here very much connected to this space that you sit in, this beautiful one, which is Spring Place, a private membership club. And I hand this over to Susanna to leave a couple of words for you. And this time I'm going to give you the actual microphone so we have it on record.
I'm so sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Susanna Woodley. I'm the SVP for Spring Place, New York and Beverly Hills for membership. I am curious, by a show of hands, how many of you have not visited Spring Place before? Nice. And also by a show of hands, how many of you know what Spring Place even is? How many of you know the difference between Spring Studios and Spring Place? Yeah. So, Spring Place is actually the private members club. Spring Studios is our B2B. It's where we do everything from experiential events, conferences. We're the home of Tribeca Film Festival, the home for New York Fashion Week, and the Wall Street Journal, the Future of Everything Festival, which our Spring Place members actually get perks from just by being members. We are spread across 3 floors. We have a workspace. We have private offices. We have resident desk. We also have hot seats. We have also this amazing community tier for individuals who just want to be able to attend our programming. And we offer everything from screenings, panels with Jan, who we love, live music. We do a fundraiser breakfast that one of our members hosts that connects VCs to startups. There's just a plethora of programming that happens here. And the ecosystem here is rather unique. Fenty started out of Spring Place. Hailey Bieber Road Skincare started out of Spring Place. We have about 16 unicorn companies that got their start here just from the ecosystem alone. So if you are interested in Spring Place, definitely check out our website, check out our Instagram. More importantly, everyone who has RSVP that's here will receive a complimentary invitation to experience Spring Place for a day with our compliments and with Jan compliments. So you could thank Jan for that. And if you have any questions, I'll be by the bar after the program. So enjoy, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Susanna. Round of applause. With that, another partner, Meet the People. Nobody's here tonight, but they're basically on the path to become the next WPP. A great company, definitely check it out. And we also have Ruben Austin here as a representative of All in All. Thank you very much. An exclusive event and membership part, also different to Spring Place, obviously. However, definitely also encourage you to check it out. And yeah, with that, a couple of house rules. As you can imagine or already heard here, this session is being recorded. So if you don't like that, now is the time to bail. So then later on, this will be shared on social media and will be shared on different various channels, and you can get it access to it. Please be respectful to the panelists. Don't talk while we have our session here ongoing. And then also social sharing is encouraged. We do have the social handles of choice here underneath the actual names of our panelists, and so please feel free to take pictures, share them, and tag us, and so forth. And let's have a lot of fun. To my panelists, I please encourage you to be full of wisdom and don't monologue if possible. And with that, I do an introduction of our panelists tonight. So, Jim Norton, here to my left, former Chief Business Officer at Condé Nast, and now the Chief Revenue Officer at Flowcode. We got Molly Garza, she a former Marketing Manager at Verizon, former Partner Manager at and Enterprise at Walmart, and now, just recently, former VP now Sales of iHeartMedia. And we got Greg Kahn, who is the President and CEO at the Emerging Tech Exchange, and also CEO at GK Digital Ventures. Round of applause, please, for the panelists. Thank you very much for being here tonight. All right, and with that, I want to start to kick off the first question, and I would love you to also quickly then answer the question in context what you do today in your current job. So that would be, please tell us what you do and share an example how AI has been implemented in your work. Jim.
Yes, thank you, Jan, and good to be with everybody this evening. So my name's Jim, and I'm the CRO at a small startup about four blocks north of here, Spring and Sixth, called Flowcode. So Flowcode, early stage company, founded by Tim Armstrong. By the way, how many people in media marketing advertising, just by a show of hands? Good to know what the audience is. Yeah, so Flowcode is an enterprise-grade B2B SaaS platform that is focused on QR codes. So you've likely seen Flowcodes in the likes of on ESPN College Game Day, or if you watch NFL football or have shopped for a BMW lately, you will likely have encountered a Flowcode. But you know, I'm excited to join the conversation because AI is very much a big component of what we've been doing. And I'll be speaking quite a bit about the use of AI through the lens of B2B sales and marketing. A lot of consumer application, but very large application in the business-to-business space as well.
Wonderful, thank you so much. And I have to admit that right now, this is not a Flowcode QR code. We'll definitely change that, of course. We'll definitely change this. Molly, please, your introduction, what you're doing right now, and then also how AI is implemented in this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a business development and sales leader. I recently left iHeart, so I'm actually on the lookout for a new company. So please, let's chat after and network. But I've also spent time at other companies, including Walmart, working with tier 1 partners. That's usually what I do. I try to work with what we call whales, right? Those are the largest revenue generating companies. Typically, they fall into CPG, but they can also fall into retail as well. So Walmart has also been my client. And I've also have background in product innovation, looking 5 to 10 years ahead of time at Verizon Wireless. And so with that full perspective, I just love AI. It's breakthrough. That's to no surprise. That's why we're all here, right? But there's a lot of efficiencies that it can offer to sales leaders as well as sales managers. So overall, it's just going to improve your bottom line. Don't be afraid. And then secondary to that is we already know that brands are adopting AI in some format. 80% are already using it in search. And search is, of course, the most efficient media type here. So overall, there's a couple lenses that I can provide here from both a sales perspective as well as a consumer perspective because I have worked with brands and large brands who are actively using it.
Thank you, Molly. Greg, wonderful to have you.
Thank you, Jan. And can everyone hear me? I don't know if this is... Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Kahn. I am the CEO. Thank you, Mo. Try this mic. Is this better?
Yes.
Testing.
Much better.
Hi, everyone. I'm Greg Kahn. I'm the CEO of GK Digital Ventures, which is an investment advisory in the intersection of emerging tech, media, and advertising. I also run what's called the Emerging Tech Exchange, which used to be known as the Internet of Things Consortium, where I bring dozens of companies, corporate startups, and public sector execs together around all emerging technology. You can't go a half block without having 5 conversations about AI these days, so heavily invested in the AI. I also personally invest in the AI space. I have a couple of portcos in the space and actively in due diligence on others. Jan, your question around how do I use AI, how do I not use AI, I think is the question. I use it for deal flow. I use it for due diligence on companies and competition in certain markets. I use it for emerging tech exchange, for content, helping to write narratives around emerging tech that's hitting the marketplace. I use it for photography and video, helping to, again, communicate what's happening in the marketplace. So, and I use it for operational efficiency, so internally with my teams. So lots of ways that AI is being adopted, and psyched to be here and have a conversation with you all.
Love it. Thank you. Let's test this microphone again. The other one?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
No, I don't think that's...
Hello?
All right, let's drop that one. If you two could share one, that would be fine. Thank you very much. Greg, keep it for now. I'm going to kick off a little quick fire session when you guys have a short answer to this. And we start with you, Greg. It would be like how is AI redefined the traditional norms of advertising? So as we are all talking here about advertising and AI, in that format, how has it redefined? Has it been redefined in your case, in your work?
So kind of taking a macro view, the ad space has been interrupted, has been essentially disrupted for the past 10 years. It's moved very much to programmatic world. It's taken a lot of creativity out of the business and has become a lot more about efficiency. This is pre-AI, pre the current phase of AI. I think what AI has done is a couple of things in the advertising world. One is it's taken some cost out of the business. So a lot of the conversation around AI is around efficiency, and there have definitely been some reductions of staff due to AI. But it's also opened up creativity. And I think that, and we're in the very, very, very early stages of how it's affecting the ad business, but it's taking a lot of the targeting work, the actual processing of payments out of the system, and opening up an opportunity for people to be more creative in terms of how they reach their consumer and how they build brands.
Thank you. Molly, the same question for you.
Yeah, AI is awesome. There's a lot that it can offer. So generative AI is breakthrough technology. They're saying it's the latest breakthrough since the internet. So if that can kind of give you depth, then that's where we are today. Generative AI has a lot of opportunity when you have the output of text, video, insertion of things like brands and products. Not only are you creating efficiency, like Greg had mentioned, but now you have a new superpower that you didn't have before. Typically in advertising and the creation of advertising, it can take weeks and months to produce the creative. From a sales perspective, I am absolutely dependent on when my brands and partners can deliver that to me. In fact, if they are late, then working for the tech companies that I work for, have delayed revenue, or we've only gotten a portion of the revenue because that creative is now behind. When you have something like generative AI, which is breakthrough in the technology, you're creating efficiency where we need it the most right now, which is the creative. We are dependent on that in advertising. That's how the magic happens. And so in terms of the impact that it has on the total industry, if you're a tech company, improved and more profits, revenue generation. If you're a brand and a marketer, you now have a new superpower. You are able to maximize and now create more creative. Of course, that human element is always needed on top of that, but it's going to give you way more efficiency and way more output.
Flowcode is definitely not like the traditional advertiser, and it's a modern company, but is there any break or is there any big change that you've seen there?
Well, a couple things, and just to summarize what both Greg and Molly spoke to, and I think the evolution of AI, because programmatic advertising in reality is computer intelligence to maximize efficiency. For those of you in advertising, it's all about reach at the most efficient rate, hitting the right person at the right time. So the quantitative element of advertising has been underway for well over a decade. I think the biggest trend to what Molly pointed out is how that has moved to the qualitative side of the industry in terms of the ability to make creative more efficient, both the production of creative, but also the delivery of creative. With respect to flow code, now flow code, the area that we have been most focused on has not been in the digital space, which is really where a lot of the AI innovation has taken place. When you think about an online search or an online view of a piece of content and how an ad is served, where we have been most focused at flow code is in the real world. So when you attend an event, if you go to a Knicks game at the Garden, or if you're at retail, or if you're at a conference like this, how can you use a code to make that direct connection between a consumer, a fan, and some level of digital content? The number one thing that we've been working on most recently is how does that content delivery change based off of the individual that's actually scanning the code? And that can be done a variety of different ways without, actually knowing who the individual is, but you could do it based on time of day or day of week or device type or geolocation, and the ability to use AI as almost like a smart rule in terms of what are you delivering back to that consumer after they scan a code.
Gotcha. So much more advanced algorithm basically to analyze the data in
That's right.
real time?
That's right,
Gotcha.
yeah.
So I want to then stay with you because the question here, and then now we're going a little bit more to the meat on the bone, is do you think has AI created an uneven playing field in the environment here really where smaller companies, individuals maybe cannot invest or afford larger AI models? Or is it the opposite? Because now AI is basically available to everyone. Does that even the playing field? Where do you stand?
Oh, I'm a believer in that this levels the playing field for both large and small businesses. So think about a large enterprise sales organization that has the resources to go out and hire 40 business development reps. For those of you that don't know the BDR role, that is 40 20-somethings banging phones, sending emails, doing hardcore outbound B2B sales. What AI presents is the opportunity to remove the inefficiency of 40 people and do the same amount of output using generative AI. And generative is the key here because using language models that allow the writing of emails or converting emails into social posts or following people on LinkedIn, the ability to be much more efficient on things like lead scoring and prospect scoring. So for small, earlier stage companies who are heavily reliant on a direct outbound sales motion, the introduction of AI and specifically generative AI now is this major unlock where you can get the output of an army with just a few people and some smart processors.
Very good, yes. That actually is an interesting question that leads me to Molly here. In that regard, if you drive a lot of the qualitative or quantitative work through AI, how crucial is the loss of the human touch when it comes to that? It comes to the advertising element of it. I'm sure that many people question, should we use that? Will people notice that we used AI? How crucial is that?
I love this question. Who out there right now sees AI as a threat to your current role? Anyone?
Couple.
I will say I've had that perception. Also, I work in sales, right? So there are many apps that exist to write emails. I have ghost written for C-suite executives. And I will say I do love writing emails. But that can now be done with ChatGPT, Writer.io. There's a number of apps that exist out there that can do some of the things that I have previously said is a value add that I can bring in my role as a person, as an individual, and also as a leader. Take that aside. I want all of us to flip AI on the head and say it's not a threat. It's actually your new superpower. I've actively been using ChatGPT, Writer.io, and other apps to help write the email. The thing is you have an outlier, which is something that AI is still dependent on, and that's the history. So for example, I might have a business partner that I've known for 10 years. They've worked with me company to company, and I know that their daughter loves Taylor Swift. What the email can't do is say, hey, I got tickets to Taylor Swift, do you want to come? Right? So like that's a quick edit that I can do to an email. But what it can do is it can take the context of a chain and now create an email for me or a response into something like a client's challenge or input insights, or kind of create different variations of what a more personalized email to this person would be based off of the input. That personal human touch, though, is absolutely needed because empathy is missing, and then also broader macro history. So that's my answer. It's a superpower.
I love it. I mean, you know, I've seen this many times now, and you feel like you already know when somebody writes an email, a message, and something in AI, and you know, just like adding to that, it makes such a difference and so important. And to your first part of the question here, people that have been listening to our panels here for a couple of times know that I love to quote Scott Galloway on this one here. He says that it's not AI that takes your job, it's the person who knows how to work with AI. It's going to take your job. So just a little plug here to definitely encourage everyone to get on the knowledge side of the AI part. Greg, the using AI for an optimization tool, how much has AI improved the ROI of advertising campaigns?
So I'm going to answer that question, but I just want to build on what the question was to Jim first, which was about the concentration of power. I think it's important to have this dialogue before we talk about optimization. So just very briefly, I think there is a threat in terms of for small, medium business owners with respect to AI. And the threat is similar to what we've seen in Web 2.0 with the social media companies. I think somebody's listening to me up here.
Somebody did, AI gods.
I think we're in a really interesting spot now where we're talking about scale and the capital to build these large language models and who's going to be able to influence them and the bias that is inherent in them. So there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity for us to all have a voice, but it's very real. That same FANG companies that have built businesses over the last 10 years are the most active in this AI space. Back to your question on optimization, which is related to that, because all of those companies are working on various tools and systems to help marketers optimize their campaigns, right? We're in very early stages of this. And I think, you know, look, I'm hugely optimistic on where the market can go as long as we can mitigate the risks. So yes, it will help you target better. It will help you figure out which medium you need to be on, how much money to spend in each individual channel, how to do it effectively at scale, but on a personalized basis. But I think the question becomes, again, is what is the role that a Microsoft or a Google or a Meta or an Amazon is going to play in this overall ecosystem vis-a-vis every other company that is attempting to be in the marketplace. So we're still in the first inning of this. I think a lot of it relates, there's going to be a big meeting this coming week in the White House around potential regulation of AI. I say that with a little bit of a chuckle because regulation is not something I see happening very soon. We don't tend to regulate a lot of technology in this country, but there's at least an important meeting that's coming out. So stay tuned. Maybe we'll have a part 2 of this next week after the White House conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot of hope going into that. So quick on that note, what is an AI tool that you would recommend people should look into?
You know, I mean, look, I think Copilot is coming out in a couple days for Microsoft. I'm a tinkerer in all technologies. So, you know, I was very early to, show of hands, how many folks used Lensa when it first came out? No hands? Not one person used Lensa? Okay, maybe 3. Okay, I got 3.
Don't be shy, it's okay.
Very, very early days of AI photography and being able to do mashups. You know, I tend to play around a lot with mashups. I think I get a lot of inspiration on kind of seeing how photography, so think along the lines of a Dolly and a Midjourney with a ChatGPT 4, those kinds of things. And one of the really fun, unique things is seeing how, you know, fashion designers are playing around with brands. And one example is the retailer 7-Eleven, the convenience store, playing around with Hermes and creating new kicks based on sort of thinking about what a Taco Bell or 7-Eleven or something could be if they sold merchandise. I think it's super cool. And so a lot of times when we're having conversations around AI, we talk about optimization or we talk about creativity, but there's also a revenue potential opportunity. And what I'm always thinking about is, shit, they should sell that at 7-Eleven, right? Like they should actually get people into 7-Eleven to buy these things, sweatshirts and kicks and things like that. There's a real revenue opportunity there. So that's a little bit of how I play around with some of the tools.
Love that. Molly, any recommendation? Your favorite tool, one.
Ooh, one. I really like Otter. Otter transcribes your meetings, and for a sales leader, you can have visibility into the meetings for the people that you manage. As a salesperson, you can now get the transcription in real time.
Wonderful. Jim?
I'm going to go with Gong.io. Anybody use Gong? Gong is a meeting recorder for Zoom meetings. Amazing because not only will it summarize the meeting, it will prompt you on next steps and follow-ups that were the direct result of that meeting. It is able to just transcribe and use language models so it's follow your Gong notifications on what to do next.
Very nice. Yeah, we're using Fathom, which is also now with a great AI tool in there. And actually, I like that recommendation part. It's actually there's another article. Bronson, I believe it was Lester Chen from A16Z that put this out. It helps you to optimize your ChatGPT flow. Was that? Yeah. So we're going to put this into our little LinkedIn group. By the way, quick little plug. I know it's not a flow code, but if you scan that code later on now, whenever, you get directed to our LinkedIn group. So just join there. It's cost-free, and you get access to our panelists and the announcement when the next panel is going to start and so forth. And I'm going to put also the resources into that channel so you can then pick it up. So a couple of really great things. And I always want to highlight when we talk about tools, it's also the thought always with AI goes always to the overlords that are going to destroy us in one doomsday, right? The Terminator scenario. However, there are so many different applications. I like to highlight that always in these panels because we forget about that. We ourselves at One Earth Rising, we're working on a solution where we can actually bring 3D assets, for example, into an 8-bit world. Bring your Call of Duty guy into Super Mario. So things like that, AI can be incredibly helpful with machine learning systems in place. And yeah, it's fun. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there. Encourage everybody to check it out. So going into our quick fire round again here, would love to see or hear from you guys. Where do you see AI in your industry, in your field, working? How will it work in 5 years from now? Looking a little bit into the future. Going to start with you, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, so the thesis behind Flow Code has been about there's been so much investment and attention in the digital ecosystem in thinking about online consumers and how do you convert them into ultimately an online purchaser. There's some sort of conversion that's happening. One of the areas where we've been predominantly focused, and this is where we live our lives as we are right now, is in the real world, this IRL element. And so how can AI be used to optimized in real life? Let's take sports in a fan experience, and let's just say you're at an F1 event, and the ability for AI to be used for you to help follow your favorite driver on the track. And that is very much an enhanced fan experience, as opposed to waiting for the cars to speed by at 200 miles an hour for 100 plus laps. You're getting a much richer digital experience in your hand. The mobile device unlocks all of this, and so it's, we're a big believer in the in real life experience and how can that be enhanced through what everybody has in their pocket or in their hand right now, the mobile device.
So very much also very much more relevant advertising also at the point of consumption.
Certainly, and the ability to optimize that advertising based on who you're serving that content to. And there's a lot that can be done on that, and especially if it's permissioned.
Absolutely. Molly, your take.
Yeah, I want to double tap on the personalization and a more frictionless user experience. That's great. From my point of view, there's a lot that Gen AI can do in terms of just the output. So when I think about how we can really apply this, I would say overall go-to-market strategy. I'm looking at full funnel, right? So I'm looking at full funnel and how do I be the most consultative person with a brand marketer and give them the solutions that they're looking for. So now I'm kind of taking a problem, right, and a challenge. Whether that's an input because it's an input via text, or there's a new solution and I go to my product team or I go to my COO and say, hey y'all, I just heard about this new startup at Adweek, for example, a company called Rembrandt. What they do is they do virtual product placement post-production. That might be interesting for video and if I'm working at a tech company that offers video. Separately, brand safety. Mega problem in advertising. If you can unlock more potential with brand safety, any tech company will make more money. Any brand marketer will now have more unleashed opportunity with the publisher to serve their ad. There's definitely brand safety tools. Insert Sounder, who's actually solving for this in podcasting, one of the fastest growing mediums. So for me, it would be full funnel go-to-market strategy, whether I'm sitting in a sales role, but then also, from the lens of a tech company.
Wonderful. Thank you. Greg.
I love this question. I'm going to build on what Jim started with. I'm a huge believer in real life. I mean, first of all, look at this room, and you can't go to a stadium, whether it's sports, music, whatever, even theatrical movies, without seeing a full crowd. The AI build on it is really interesting. So late this summer, I met with 25 AI companies in Israel, and Jim mentioned the F1 play, and one of them was a motocross AI company. Essentially, they were collecting data, telematics data from every car on every track around the world, aggregating that data and then selling it to companies like ESPN, Yahoo Sports, et cetera. So you have a real-time ticker of your favorite driver, and it could be personalized, and then you could bet on top of that. You could buy goods on top of that. That brings super interesting opportunities. Also on the football side of things, I was pitched a company today. It's an NFL play where you can buy a package, a personalized package. So certain number of seats per season, you get your parking paid for, your favorite merch in addition to that, but it understands you as an individual. It's data that you are providing as an individual to get a better experience back. So big believer in real life. But I think there's also a huge virtual opportunity that we haven't really discussed yet too. And I know it seems bizarre, especially quick show of hands, anyone from Meta here tonight? Well, I'm just going to talk about Meta anyway. But Meta's version of the future of AI relates to virtual chatbots, right? And different forms of identity depending on who you are and where you are. So what I see also within the next 5 years is this really interesting, strange world where you're going to have different identities kind of served at you in every way you are. In a retail setting, you're going to show up and there might not be an actual representative behind the cash register. There might be a virtual avatar in some way, shape, or form behind, or at a hotel. And so you're going to have this combination of this push towards the physical world where we all want to get together in person, and AI is helping you to optimize your experience. And then we're going to have this separate world, which is this digital world that we've been envisioning in sci-fi movies for the last 20 years and is happening pretty quickly.
I'm going to take up on this. I'll pick you up on this. Who has seen that advertising with? I think it was Jennifer Lopez, who and AI is used to use her voice, and it's a different person. Who has seen that? All right, perfect. So when we talk about AI, one topic comes in up all the time is the IP rights, right? So who owns your IP? Who owns the rights to your likeness? So I think I'm very bullish in the next 5 years to see more emerging of technology, of AI technology with Web3, to actually allocate ownership and actually allocate and find out who's really the owner, who's the creator of this asset. And that comes down to IP rights, but it also comes down to news and knowledge and really finding out, okay, what is really true here? Is that a culpable source where this is coming from? Thank you very much. Love these answers really very much. And so since we talked about this earlier, I mentioned this briefly here with Scott Galloway, but I want to talk a little bit about one of the fears that also come with AI, as you mentioned earlier, Molly, the actual fear of losing your job. So how much of an impact do you see AI have on the employment market? But also at the same time, how could we prevent that? Jim.
Well, I think about this through the lens of a sales organization, and I would say it's less about losing the job. It might be changing the role. And the role of let's just take the most basic form of an outbound seller, which is very manual, lots of manual prospecting and email writing. So how does that role change from being more of a kind of prototypical salesperson to maybe something that might be more analytical? The discussion that was had early, and I think Molly mentioned this, about authenticity. And one of the things that we say is that, like, if you can use AI to get you 80% of the way there, what's that added 20% that brings that element of personalization or empathy to it? And I do believe that roles are going to change, but I don't believe this is an element where jobs are going to be eliminated. I think it's just a changing of the role, because what AI does also open up is a much broader opportunity for companies and the ability to serve customers in different ways. So I'm bullish, and I could be wrong on that, but I'm bullish as a tool for employment, not unemployment.
Greg, you have the microphone in your hand. Are you supportive of Jim's statement?
I'm gonna play the contrarian to Jim here, but I love a little debate on the panel. Look, I think there's two ways to look at this. I was in California last week, and the prominent investor, Vinod Khosla Ventures, said his belief is that 80% of jobs and 80% of industry will go away in 10 years' time if countries adopt the technology. Now, I don't agree with him, but he's one of the most prolific investors, an investor in OpenAI, some of the biggest companies that are out there. So, it's a notable statement to be made. Now, the flip side to this, of which I'm a fan of, I'm a big fan of employment, is that there are movements, and we're seeing this play out right now in the automotive industry, unions, that push back, that are very, very powerful, that say, we're concerned about this. You see this with the WGA and the Screen Actors Guild pushing back on it. And so it's not to say that Silicon Valley is going to rule the beast, but it is a conversation to be had. There is a ton of efficiency that could be had with AI. You're seeing a movement of companies trying to get people back to offices for a reason. They believe in that chemistry, even though they might be more productive in a remote environment. It might not be the best long-term for mental health in our society, and I'm a big believer in that. So I think it's up to us as individuals to help define what the future is. This is not just a technology conversation. This is a conversation around policy. It's a conversation around humanity.
Wonderful. Molly, your take.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes to all of you guys. But overall, I think the long-term impact is agility. Humans adapt. I'm glad that all of you guys are here to learn more about this. We adapt. How quickly we adapt is truly up to us and the organizations that we work for, and also a big fan of employment. But overall, we're just going to create more agile environments. So you're going to be a more agile leader that actually gets to focus on your leadership skills versus maybe being in the weeds of analyzing the data and doing pivot tables yourself, right? And then if you're talking about product and you're a product leader, now you have more data, now you have more analysis to have a faster product development roadmap. Maybe there's keywords that a customer has constantly been inputting that informs the next 5 years of product ideation. So agility would be my answer.
Wonderful, thank you. It has nothing to do with advertising, but I definitely wanted to, you just sparked an idea, Greg. I just came back from San Francisco, the GameSpeed conference there, and Philip Rosedale spoke. He's the founder of Second Life, or the creator of Second Life, one of them. And if somebody in the audience doesn't know, so Second Life, I think like now 23 years ago, was created and is still up and running, the first metaverse, basically. You go there, play your Second Life. He said in relation, because you just mentioned also the human touch again, and also we want to be amongst other human beings. He said he foresees the future with the metaverses not, and also the real life, where we're not actually talking to robots who are representative of AI, but actually we're meeting the AIs in the metaverse, and we're interacting with them in the metaverse. And that was an interesting thought, and I just wanted to leave this here with the audience to take this away and prepare for you. All right, so we are going to go into Q&A very soon, so prepare some questions that you want to ask. But before we start, we have a tradition on the show, and I always ask my panelists here to think about some feedback that anyone here in the room should take away. If there's one sentence there, one quick note that everybody should leave with, what is that? Jim, what would you like people to take away?
Think about the real world and think about the opportunity of this. You know, post-pandemic is was an opportunity to reflect on what was missing during those 3 years and the importance, and Greg said this, you can't go to an arena or an entertainment venue and it's not packed, and I think the importance of that in real life experience and how that can be enhanced with new technologies. If anybody has been to Vegas and seen the Sphere, it is a marvel of technological innovation, and that is just a window into what the future looks like.
Wonderful. Molly, what would you like the people to take away?
AI is your new superpower, so go find it.
Wonderful. Perfect. That is definitely easy to remember.
My takeaway is be an active participant. I think so much of the last decade in this world of Facebook and Twitter and all TikTok and all the other channels, we were feeding data as individuals to big corporations, and they were deciding the algorithms and what to do with it. Keep showing up at events like this. Keep sharing your voice. It's so important. You know, when we have the conversation about employment, voice your opinion. You know, we're put on this earth for a reason, right? And it's meant to work with the technology, not for the technology to replace us.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I mean, I want to echo that. Get involved. Really get involved and inform yourself. It is there. It's going to stay. It's going to evolve. And you want to be on the right side of history on that. So the second piece I asked, or the second thing I asked from my attendees here, of my panelists, is to give a recommendation to you, either a book, podcast, a forum, whatever it is, and I want to kick it off. I'll set it up here. I want to recommend for all of you, this really has changed my life. Indistractable by Nir Eyal is an incredible book, and it helps you to center yourself, coordinate, and properly focus and push away the procrastination, specifically with more tech around that tries to distract you. That's my recommendation. Molly, let's start with you.
Oh gosh, I'm gonna have two. For those who are beginners, Tech for Non-Techies. Sophia is a friend of mine. Shout out to Yes We Can. I manage a networking group of global leaders around the world. It's run by Can Lion. And so Tech for Non-Techies, if you're a beginner, definitely check it out. There's a podcast. She also has a website, and she can be a consultant. Second, just go to Meta, go to Snapchat, go to Google. You can get certified on Google. You can take all the classes. So definitely, if you haven't gone hands to keyboard, please do it. You'll get the basics, and hopefully you'll have a better understanding on a personal level that will help you throughout your learnings.
Wonderful. Craig?
I'd recommend a book called The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. He's the co-founder of DeepMind. And when I'm not a big believer in hype cycles. There's a lot of buzzwords, and technology and AI is the latest one. He talks about the wave of technology that's coming and where we've come before it and what we could look forward to. And it's a really insightful read, not just about the tech itself, but also about society and how it's adopted to the tech. And you know, one key thing with AI is that there's always one constant with technology is that there's change. I see tons of folks playing on their mobile phones, and I took my 14-year-old son to see the Broadway show Back to the Future, which I'd recommend for a fun kick. But you know, we were laughing on the ride home. One thing that was missing from the show was cell phones. There was 0 cell phones because it took place in the 1980s, right? And just imagining if we could go back to the 80s and recreate what society was like today, would we have mobile phones, right, based on where we are today? What's coming with AI, though, is that it took decades for the mobile phone to really reach mass penetration. Look at the impact that it has in all of our lives. AI is going to reach that within a decade. And so the change is happening extremely quickly in society. And that's why I can't underscore more that it's important for us to all get involved and help to shape how it's going to impact our lives. But we can shape it for the good.
Wonderful. Thank you, Greg.
I'm,
Jim?
I'm going to recommend a weekly newsletter, and the marketing and advertising people will know the name of Rashad Tabakawala, who Rashad was the longtime really head of innovation at the Publicis Group. He's got a weekly newsletter that comes out on Sunday called "The Future Does Not Fit into the Containers of the Past." It's a quick read, very relatable. He's written extensively about AI and new technology, but he also has a really great innate ability to bring it to reality. This past week's topic, one simple word, it was trust. And I think, the discussion that we've had today, you have to remember the importance of trust in any relationship, whether that's a personal relationship, certainly a business relationship. That is one of the dangers of AI, is if you're not mindful of that trust element, that is a really fast way to lose a relationship and certainly lose a sale. And I think, just for those of you interested in reading more about this, as I said, it's Rashad Tabakawala. It's on Medium, but keep that in mind: trust and integrity. And I think it's a really key element.
What was the name again? It's not very catchy.
It's called "The Future Does Not Fit into the Containers of the Past." That is the name of the newsletter.
Thank you. Wonderful. This is great advice. And now I would like to open this up to the audience with some questions. You had your hand up first. Here, Bronson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all for your time. So I'm a data scientist. I don't work in advertising. I did my master's in AI, actually, so really interesting to hear kind of the other side of how you guys are looking at it. I have like 1,000 thoughts going through my head, I'll be honest. My first thought is to kind of just say to the room, like, generative adversarial networks, which are what we call generative AI, are like just a subcomponent of NLP. Like the suite and like kind of the potential for power is much bigger than that. We have all these commercial products. I kind of like say it's like saying we've invented the car, and a lot of us now have a driver's license, right? We're still, to understand how a car works, and like it doesn't make us mechanical engineers. We're not automotive experts. Like, even having a master's, I don't call myself an AI master by any stretch, but it put me in mind of thoughts, of things like how you guys use computer vision, how you guys use decision support systems or expert systems, what would be called. Like, I was trying to like think through my head. I have a consulting firm of like how I would tell one of my clients who has maybe, in-person advertisement to put a camera up, and we could build, some sort of computer vision model that's tracking sentiment analysis outside of something like NLP, which is, we would do maybe like bag of words to say, well, it's, they're using this word versus that word. No, we're looking at human expression. And then we're doing a k-means clustering to say, when you walk by that advertisement, we could just A/B testing as well to say, they walked by that advertisement and it was a look of disgust. We saw no look in their face, or faces lit up. You could do that. That's an organic data point that you're not even aware of, right? And that's kind of the scary part of our phones, and that's why I cover the front of my camera, is that our phones are doing that too, right? Why is your For You page on TikTok so smart? It's because it knows how your facial expression is to all these things. It's just so powerful. So I'm thinking beyond just, obviously ChatGPT and all those like language models, like something to also encourage in the room. So Bard is Google's model, but their internal thing is even more powerful. But they introduced, it's called Notebook LLM. And in that, you can upload 50 of your own documents, right? If we're all using the same tool and we're all saying, hey, write some copy about XYZ. Eventually, we're going to have some homogeneity where everyone sounds the same, right? You're saying, it's conversational AI still sounds like a robot. But, to really lean into those things that are just a little more specific, if your whole thing is anchored to just like I said, the NLP piece of it. But thinking even like broader, I raised my hand when I said I'm out of a job soon, just because I spent years trying to memorize Python and R and SQL, and oh my God, now this whole thing does it for me, and like what's my vantage point? So I think we're much quicker than 10 years. That's all to say. But I guess roundabout way of saying, are you guys thinking about broader things outside of just natural language modeling? And I mean, especially to the point, churn, sentiment analysis, customer lifetime value. All these things, right, to Jim's point, are big data, right? I'm not building NLP models for my client. I've built chatbots before, but even to that end, the real meat of it is in the statistical analysis. So I guess a long way of saying I'm curious to hear about how you're seeing that and how that applies. Thanks.
I'll jump in first. I mean, So I invest and advise in all emerging technology, not just AI. And I think when I say I don't believe in hype cycles, I think you have to see all of the technology that's led to this point. You talked about connected devices, IoT. There's the connectivity piece of it, 5G. You spoke about spatial computing. Apple's releasing Vision Pro next year, which is going to change the face of how we think about mixed reality. So there's a lot of disruption happening in technology. At the same time, the U.S. plays a very fine line around privacy and security. So we as consumers are willing to give up information when we believe there's a value exchange. Look at the whole model of TikTok, right? But then there are certain times that we get very precious about our data and say, no, 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 it's really mine and I want to have personal sovereignty over our data. I don't think we're there yet. So when you think about facial recognition, probably half of the room, if not more, has an iPhone. They use the facial recognition feature to get onto their iPhone. They have no idea how that data is being used behind the scenes. Apple says it's private. You don't know, right? But when you think about cameras, Ring cameras and Google Home cameras and the like, they're monitoring. Take a look at an Amazon store when you have contactless checkout and you're being tracked every movement that you're making. Amazon, a lot of people don't know, is in the process of buying iRobot, which is your Roomba to help map your home indoors, right? 3D mapping. These things are happening. When I mentioned about the concentration of power, that's when you have to think about the bigger tech companies and how that data is used. What happens with Fitbit and Google? What happens with Roomba and Amazon? I don't know. It's up to us to shape it and for us to be transparent and to talk about the data that's being collected and either to say, yeah, I'm aligned to it because I feel like there's a value exchange that I'm getting from it, whether it's security or whether it's e-commerce application, but it's a really, really complex conversation. And then when you get down to the advertising piece, that's just a tiny subset of this, is that are consumers willing to give up their information to be served an advertisement or a coupon or something for better targeting?
And I'll just add on to that, our brand's ready for it, for the advertising. So and this is years ago, but I was on the innovation team at Verizon Wireless, like I said, looking 5-10-year roadmap. I sat in legal's offices every day, and this is going to date myself, back in the day whenever mobile just came out and it was its own thing. And we were working on HTML5 and what that meant and what consumer privacy meant. I was sitting there in the offices, and let me tell you, their stack of papers was really high, and I was somewhere not even at the top, okay? So there's a number of problems that, or implications, I would say, that we really need to consider. So when it comes to advertising, I can name a number of brands that are still archaic in how they activate advertising, where programmatic even has been around for forever, and that's only 20% of their budget. Are you kidding me? Like other brands that are more forward, pipes, they have it already set up more than, or I would say around 80%. But there's a lot of implications, and it's every side of how we activate, whether it's supply side, publishers, tech companies, or brand side, where we're creating the demand.
Just one fast thing, lots of language model activations happening. One of the things that we've been thinking a lot about is how do you take a set of brand creative assets, think about logos and color palettes and sounds and video clips, and use that to generate creative. That's all available in a digital environment that can be harvested and then turned into something that might be a little bit more specific to a consumer.
Share this with you now. I saw another arm going up, and thank you for the question. Yep, over here, on the right side, with the cap.
Thank you so much. My name is Kofi. I'm exploring the intersection between AI and Web3, primarily in the media and entertainment space. We are doing some tokenization of real-life assets, exploring digital assets. But what keywords do you guys use when you have a reluctance? So, for example, doing a program with guys at Broadway, and as soon as I say AI, we're going to create digital twins of you. They're going to like, oh, you're going to take our image, and we're not going to see the work again. I'm like, no, it's going to be very transparent because it's going to be on chain. Everybody's going to have access to it. What keywords do you use to make them feel comfortable? Or you might see somebody say, oh, can we do something on Web3 but no metaverse? I'm like, okay, it's kind of like intersected the same thing. Or can we do a tokenization of a real life asset, but We don't want NFTs. So because of those keywords that maybe last year some bad players gave it a bad name, what keywords should we use interchangeably to onboard mass adoption for those who are not too familiar with the industry?
Interesting question. And AI and Web3. What's that? OGA, yes, that's a good man. AI and Web3.
I'll throw out a few words. So distribution and promotion, right? That's a great way to, I mean, that's essentially what you're doing, is allowing for content distribution and promotion. I would say from a business to business side, I would use word like when something's on the chain, it's very attributable. And so the ability to use words like loyalty, attribution, those are, I mean, that's the kind of language I would use in a marketing set that seems to resonate with end marketers. Is that helpful? Yeah, that's right.
Anyone want to add anything?
Jim mentioned loyalty, which was one that I was going to share. People are fickle. It's so funny. I carried the torch of IoT, Internet of Things, for many years and realized that was the most uncool acronym after about, very short period of time. And people are fickle. It's interesting, like, the company Facebook rebranded as Meta for Metaverse, and you saw how quickly that went out of vogue. And from, everything from Main Street to Wall Street, it was like, wow, that's a bad moniker. And now they're all in on AI. And I promise you that in a year or two, we'll probably be moving on from artificial intelligence. And so I think, back to what marketers can do really, really well is to come up with messaging that real consumers want to use, not the tech talk that Silicon Valley sort of comes up with. Apple has decided that metaverse is now spatial computing. It's not mixed reality. So, I would say, number one, look to companies like Apple or Nike or others that help to create culture and what they're calling things, because they tend to get a lot more, receptivity to whatever it is they call things. And then secondly, I think this is where there's the opportunity, right? Like, I mean, think about words like collab, which I don't think we would be talking about collabs 10 years ago, or influencers, right? Thinking about the creator economy. That's one where you're like, wow, that's kind of a weird mashup of things, but somehow it's got acceptance. And so I look to, both sort of just what's out there in the marketplace. Loyalty is something that's always been accepted by marketers, right? In terms of how they think of things, but don't use NFT anymore.
100% agree. Quick plug-in here, simplification. We call our NFTs basically OGAs, which stands for Ownable Game Assets. Simple as that. Created by this wonderful man here, Bronson here. Lady in the back, I think, Susanna, you're pointing to? Yeah, wonderful.
Hi, I'll be quick. My name is Neanda. Thank you so much for this talk and conversation. I'm coming at this as a consumer and somebody who covered generative AI, but in different settings in academia and also oil and gas. So it's a vast sort of spectrum. However, in regards to generative AI, have you addressed some of the issues that have come up with how generative AI is trained on a very narrow subset of languages or even cultures, and that gives the consequences being that sometimes it misinterprets information, it even leads to discrimination in some cases. And what's your point of view on how that can be addressed? Thank you.
So I'll start. I was with Hadi Partovi last week, who created Code.org, which is an incredible organization that aims to teach everybody, mandate computer science in every school around the world, not just in the US. But Hadi's biggest area that he's building now is Farsi from a coding perspective, because he and his twin brother came from Iran and felt that clearly that there was not enough democracy that was happening in terms of education in some parts of the Middle East. To answer your question, it's a huge challenge. We've been seeing this for the past decade in terms of how algorithms are developed. The tech industry needs a ton more diversity and inclusion at the outset to who's creating these algorithms, the words that are being used. Most of the models today are trained in English. It's just the fact, right? So the books that are scraped, the articles that are read are mainly in English today, and we need to push to make sure that it's done internationally at the same time, same speed that it's being done here in the US, but it's a real issue. There is bias already in these models. We're seeing it already, in addition to the deep fakes that are happening with these models. And then to your point about verticals, oil and gas, what I would say is that it's not just historical data, but it's data that's being supplemented. So I've been meeting with a lot of companies that are creating primary data, and I'll be more specific about that. They're using cameras and sensors to be able to share more real-time data to infuse these models. So if you think about oil and gas, if you create cameras on top of oil rigs and sensors to track just the flow of oil and where it's coming from on a worldwide basis, then that could be infused into models to help to anticipate supply and demand. It gets very sophisticated, but the question becomes again around the privacy and security side, right? And what is going to be allowed and what's not going to be allowed. So again, we're in the first innings of all of this, but there are a lot of folks that are working on both sides of the equation, the diversity and inclusion side, as well as the primary data that's being fed into the LLMs.
Great question. Anyone to add? No? I saw a hand going up here, gentleman here in the first, last, whatever row, on the right side of you. Microphone is coming down.
Thanks. I'm a founding engineer at a Web3 attribution company, so slightly related to the previous question. But my question relates around the key metrics that have been driving growth marketing for like the last 20 years. In my mind, that's like CAC, ROAS, CPA. They've kind of not changed over the last 20 years. Do you think AI is going to change these, or the way we look at them, or make them much better?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I think it's all going to improve. That's my very optimistic opinion here. But definitely engagement. So we've talked about creative, we've talked about personalization, we've talked about variations. So because of that, now you're looking at engagement. Video is a very big asset, right? We can also apply this to commercial. We can apply this to studios. So let's just say, for example, the Rembrandt example that I gave, a really cool company that I was able to meet at Adweek, got a product demo. They've worked with clients that are on the cutting edge as a global marketer. They're able to, like I said, put virtual products, post-production, in video assets, which can also be used as commercials in studios, if we're like gonna go see the Eras tour, whatever it is. So because of all of that, I would say number one is engagement, digital environment. That's where a lot of AI lives, right? And then after that, I would say things like viewership, time spent. So, which is really cool because now you're getting more into that content play. So I would give it a twofold answer. You're going to see improvements in typical like DR, direct response advertising, and then second, I think that metrics like engagement and time spent will be more valued because of the personalization that comes with that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is outcomes based, right? And the ability to understand what is the ultimate outcome. Was it a purchase? Was it an app download? And then how does that translate into some level of lifetime value? And we're getting a lot smarter about the outputs versus just the inputs. Did somebody click on the ad, visit the page? Was there dwell time? So I think we're getting a lot smarter to be able to understand, did that person become a customer? So I know Dave had his hand up that we wanted to make sure he got, since the media is here,
So thanks so much, Jim. And yeah, to kick off from a point that you and the three of you have raised, and I think we have another hour, right, for this question. Branding in the age of AI. Jim, you talked about truth. Greg, you talked about mashups of brands. In the age of AI, do brands matter as much in terms of, do they have control, or does Balenciaga just have to sign up the Pope to wear its jacket because there's the Pope on the runway? Do brands matter more, and do they have to give up control for mashups and for whatever else the creative minds of anyone who can take a brand does with it? Thanks.
Oh, this is meaty. Go ahead.
Okay,
You're a former brand person.
I'm gonna start with something that I have that I've worked on myself because I like to tinker also. So I went to Bing. Bing has AI. I said, can you give me an example of a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader outfit for Halloween? And the pictures that came up were close, but they weren't there. Like, I'm from Dallas, know the Cowboys really well. Yeah. The cheerleaders are wearing heels. They're not wearing heels on the football field. So, that's whenever, yes, brands do matter. What's also going to matter, again, is when we start thinking about the legal implications, the branding implications, so that we need humans there, and no, it's not 100% accurate. So I would say that's a personal example, and then that's where we start to get into problems of AI can't do everything for us. It can't.
Yeah, brands matter more in the age of AI. And the reason for that is what I had said earlier was that that notion of trust. And brands have invested, enormous amounts of resources in building a level of consumer trust. And so not only is there the importance of branding from a trust element, but I also think what becomes even more important is what was mentioned over here is the level of attribution and rights management and IP and how that all gets managed, whether that's on-chain or whether that's through some other mechanism, because the ability for brands to now be far more easily in a far more friction-free way to be distributed, and that's not just brand assets and logos. We're talking about real IP that has, to the Verizon, the amount of paperwork that goes into rights management is enormous.
And I'll just build on what Jim was saying. I think trust is paramount. I'm not sure that's the same as brand. So I think that the notion of brand is going to really shift. Is Taylor Swift a brand? I don't know. She's opening up not just her concert tour, but her theatrical release of the concert tour is already, I think, at 150 mil domestically. She's a brand, right? She's an individual and she's a brand. When you enter into the NIL world and thinking about athletes that are now branding themselves, I think the notion of brand is going to change. What isn't going to change is the notion of trust. And that's we're already seeing this in the pre-election cycle with deepfakes that are out there that people want to choose. They're having a challenge figuring out what news outlets they go to because they can't figure out what they trust anymore. And that relates to what they drink and what they wear, et cetera, et cetera. I think just the question becomes is what is a brand is something for us to all ponder going forward.
Yeah, and I wanted to hop into this again, what we talked about earlier, and you brought this up. That's why I'm highlighting the AI and Web3 combination is such a strong one, where we have the ability to use NFTs, or however we call them in the future. And who doesn't know what an NFT is? So basically like a receipt of ownership, and use that, and that original created IP, piece of art, if it's a song, Drake, whatever, and you have these implementations for a brand, and now you can use that and verify, okay, this is the original. And then use AI and just give, if you want to use it, and then a fraction of that payment or money you get from that gets automatically back to the creator, to the author. So I think there's a huge opportunity using these different tools together in unison and really make everybody's life even better than it is right now. I'm a very bold statement here on this one. Very bullish on this.
Thank you all for being here. Given the toxicity, given the hallucinations, given the lack of ethical training data sets, all these companies that are rushing in to go ahead and give personalized, automated, one-to-one kind of direct-to-consumer messaging without involvement of another human, is there a chance that they're going to flummox this whole thing for the whole pipeline? Are they going to essentially go ahead and stop up and go ahead and give generative AI a terrible name and go ahead and kind of like set us all back 5 years because of the current issues that we're all facing?
Huge chance, yes, but I think they're being very transparent about that. So even Sam Altman will say that he wants to be regulated. He wants us to be more methodical in how we release, the next version of ChatGPT. Here's what I'll say is happening is that they're, and this is just on a cursory level, is that some of the things that are more nefarious. So there's the misinformation that's out there, and then there's the what if we create a new chemical bomb or provide instructions to create a new chemical bomb. And so what some of the leaders in the industry are doing are making sure that there are stopgaps in their models, that if there are certain questions that are asked, they're not answered. It actually will say, I will not answer that question. And you can think about things related to minors, et cetera, et cetera. This can go in a lot of different directions. It's certainly a possibility that we could flub this whole, all of the potential of this technology, and I think everybody is aware of that. Flip side, I want to be optimistic too. There's a ton of opportunity, and not just in the advertising sector, in all sectors, to equalize the playing field and do things that we could never do before. So as an example of that is personalized medicine. AI can help you figure out or pre-diagnose a disease that you have before you have it. That's really, really powerful. It could help equalize education. How many folks can't afford a tutor? If you can have a personalized tutor for your particular learning style, and I say your particular learning style, some people learn better with video, some people learn better with audio, some people learn better with pictures. AI has the possibility to do that. So there's equally as amount of positive examples in society that as there are negative, and I think, again, it's all up to us. That's why I keep trying to share, be transparent, show up in these conversations, ask the questions, ask the leaders of these companies to share what their roadmaps are so that everybody's informed as to what's coming.
Wonderful, great question. Another show of hands. I think we have time for one, maybe two questions. Lady in the front. One second. Microphone is coming.
Thank you. So you mentioned medicine, and thank you for a lovely talk. I'm a plastic surgeon, and I've always loved AI, but I'm seeing all the limitations within medicine. Can you just speak a little bit more about, you mentioned how AI could be helpful in medicine, and I feel that a lot of regulations kind of put roadblocks for that. If you can just comment on that a little more.
So a lot of hospital systems are very hard at work on this. I mean, there's a lot of different, we could probably spend an hour just talking about the medicine piece, but just to be very brief, I think there's everything from the optimization of paperwork. We all know how challenging it is to actually just even have, to make sure, figure out if you're covered, to make that process move smoothly. Getting to a lot more sophisticated in terms of the types of treatment that you would need or surgery that you would need, and how to train somebody to do that particular surgery, or to pre-diagnose the next pandemic, or to predict the next pandemic before it comes. Here's where the rubber meets the road, though, when we talked about the international play, the English scraping versus international. Is that we're a global society, just look around the room, right? And so I think the data has to be harmonized globally for medicine. When there was a pandemic, part of the problem is that whether it came from China or not, we did not have the data to be able to predict how that could impact the US. So there are alliances that are starting to develop, and I think the World Economic Forum in January is going to be a marker for that, for the medical industry to come together and say, here are the guardrails that we need to put around it, and here's what we agree to share in terms of data and where we think that we're now infringing on personal information. But it's a very tricky thing. What I will say is that the medical industry knows that it's disjointed, to say the least, and so they realize that AI can do wonders in terms of helping to equalize the playing field, make it more efficient, and ultimately that'll benefit all of us as a society.
Sorry, the last question for the gentleman, the lady in the back, sorry. And then I'll have actually I just came up with another question that I want to ask you guys. Okay. I apologize for that.
I
Here you
have
go.
a quick question, so that's maybe we'll have time for two questions.
Sure.
Yeah, my name is Julia. I have video production for e-commerce segment, and I also use AI as like Copilot in creative part, but I have a question about targeted ads, because like the main problem of my clients is to reach like right clients in their huge of digital world. Maybe you have like some secret, or some program which helps to make like more accurate targeted ads for all businesses, because that's like really difficult problem for all businesses.
Yeah, I think one way to think about it is think less about the ad and think more about the result. So, what are you returning? Is it a different product description page based on what that advertisement is and who is actually viewing the ad? So there's been just, immense amounts of investment and attention towards the advertisement itself and who is the audience that it's targeting. There's been less attention paid to what you're actually delivering based on who that person is when they saw the ad and what the ad's actually calling for.
So we do have
So in the internet, the bar is always being raised with what people expect from you, right? And with AI right now, you can like reach a much higher bar with everything that you do, right? And with tools such as like 11 Labs, you can put your own voice into the tool, and it will speak like you. Your motion editors can make everything that it will sound like you said it, right? So then my question is, for example, with cold email outreach, I think very soon it will all be replaced by one-on-one personalized video outreach or voice outreach, right? And it will sound like you, like your voice. So the question for you is like, with all these changes that are happening, where do you think the bar will be in 1 year's time? 1 year is not very far, but in AI, that's very long, right? Of what people will expect from you in advertising.
I finally got my mic back.
There you go.
Oh my gosh, what do we expect? We have so many expectations, you guys. Mega tech platforms are retraining us are training us, right, on how to engage. So short form content, insert TikTok, insert YouTube, has trained us to have a very limited attention span. We're also teaching ourselves how to be more interactive, whether it's interactive with robots, whether it's interactive, in some shape or form to our devices. So I definitely think that voice, video, that's going to keep going. But what's going to actually be demanded is more personalization. Why doesn't Walmart understand that I wake up at 6 a.m. every morning and take a sunrise picture, and I have the same yoga outfits and like insert a new brand that they've just launched? Also, they're growing in that category. So that's something that like, why don't they? I can't answer that question, but I will tell you, everything's public information, right? So, absolutely. It's the most profitable company in the world. I wouldn't say in 1 year, but I would say that generally speaking, Walmart is a very innovative company. Think of them as a front runner for innovation. They're constantly testing. Amazon has AI, so I would say that things like product pages, like you are like the structural input and the data by which this can be successful. If you don't have the basic checklist done, it's going to be impossible, or not impossible, it's just not going to be as efficient, right, for you to now take on new innovation. But customers are constantly demanding that interaction and that personalization. So if I'm sending things to Instagram every morning at 6 a.m., absolutely, like I do expect my brands at some point to understand who I am with all this data that I'm just throwing into mega tech companies.
Have to strap in and wait. Yeah, come back. We'll have a recession here in 1 year. Then we talk about that. Exactly. Thank you for the question. I'm very selfishly reserved the last question for myself, and so I'm actually surprised nobody asked this question. So we have an election coming up. I feel like we definitely need to strap in. This is going to be a very interesting one, and it's something very dear to my heart. So by the way, also everybody register, everybody go vote. Very important. Very important. From the inside of the advertisement world, obviously advertisement has been a crucial piece of the elections recently, and it will be insane, I think, in 2024. What's your recommendation for anyone here to how to treat ads they see on social media or anyone they are going related to the next election?
I'm going to give a solution here.
Ignore them.
Yeah, thanks. I actually can't keep it to myself. Sounder, I had mentioned earlier in this talk track, they have improved brand safety in podcasting. Podcasting is categorized, so such as news, business, politics, etc. It limits an advertiser's opportunity based off of whatever it is that the restrictions are for blocking, for example, blocking news. What Sounder can do is now transcript at the episode level. So let's just say I love Jay Shetty. Listen to Jay Shetty, but there happens to be some type of conversation discussing politics in the election. That ad, if say my rules are I don't want to run there, then I will no longer run in that episode. Conversely, that episode, or let's actually conversely, Yahoo talks about news, they talk about lifestyle, etc. Yahoo could be completely blocked on my standpoint. I don't want to be on news. No, thank you. It's election. Thanks, I'm all good. What it can do now is say, you know what, this episode that Yahoo just published does not talk about politics, therefore my ad can now be served. obviously great for the advertiser scale, and on the other side for the publisher, that's revenue.
I'll let Greg round this out, but I'll give a couple of comments. Just the local media industry has been driven by political advertising spend. I was a longtime local media seller, and the election cycles are really what does drive the trends within local media. What we've seen over the last decade or so is that this goes well beyond local media into social, which is much more creator-generated content and not paid advertisement, although certainly plenty of paid advertisement within social media. I think that for all of us as individuals, you've got to take it. There's just a lot of noise in the system, and I think it's really important for people to educate themselves and not be educated by that noise. So that's my very brief recommendation, and I'm sure Greg's got something far more thoughtful than I do, but Greg, take it away.
Look, I think two parts to it on the AI side. Though I would opt not. I'm sure everyone's going to go and play and ask the large language models what do they think about each of the candidates. I'd suggest not doing that, and most of the leaders of those companies are going to start blocking those types of queries. So that's on the AI side. They don't want to play a role in the election or any kind of bias related to the election. The other side, I'm going to give props to what Jim was saying about brands and trust. I think go back to premium brands that are not influenced by all the social noise that we have had for the last 10 years. Without any preference to whatever linear channel may be losing money or whatever the case may be, it's a safe space for you to believe that the advertising that's being served is a real advertisement. It was not a deep fake, it was not generated by an individual, whatever the case may be. So stay away from the AI models in terms of asking their particular preferences. And if you're looking to media to serve you information, advertising information about the candidates, I would say to go back to more of the legacy kind of companies that have more traditional models, maybe aren't as sexy, but are certainly trustworthy in terms of the information that they're delivering.
Fantastic advice. That brings us, unfortunately, to the end of this session, and I want to conclude. It's not all gloom and doom. We have a lot of opportunity that is waiting around the corner. Definitely get involved in the new technology and be part of it, grow with it, and there's a lot of opportunity here. I thank you very, very much, this esteemed panel. Jim, Molly, Greg, a round of applause here. Also to yourself, great audience, the full house tonight. Thank you very much. This is Game Changers Collective panel series. The next panel will be on November 30. We will talk about video games, very topic dear to my heart. And yeah, so from here on out, please make sure, definitely also scan your QR code. Next time will be a flow code, and it will be part here of our LinkedIn group and get all the news and the updates here from this group. And also, you hear the music in the background. This is Sunset Social, so I encourage you all to stay, mingle, make new friends, old friends, and have a drink at the bar. Thank you again. Thank you for coming, and have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye-bye.